on, guys? JSGC here, back again with another daily Manchester City transfer update. Before I do crack on with today's update, make sure, like always, if you are enjoying the content, then do subscribe to my channel. It's free to subscribe. I'm going to keep you guys up to date every single day here on YouTube with all the latest City transfer news. So if you haven't already, do subscribe. Aiming now for 46,000 subscribers, less than 200 subs away. So any help towards that would be great. Social media links are in the description, including my X, Instagram and TikTok. Email also in the description too if you want to hit me up for any sponsorships for any videos or any general business inquiries. Don't forget as well to leave a thumbs up on today's video. We're aiming for 300 likes, and do get your thoughts as well in the comments below. Finally, I have made a fantasy football league, so if you want to come and join the JSGC league, then all you need to do is enter the code XXSVL5 and that will join you into the league. I'll leave the links and details in the description if fantasy football is your thing. Having as many people on board as possible would be absolutely brilliant, and it'd make things very exciting. So please do come and join me on fantasy football. So we've not really got too much to speak about in terms of the new contracts and outgoings, but we have had a couple of developments when it comes to the ins. Firstly, I want to speak about a new name. It comes in the form of Castello Lukeba. Now, Rudy Galletti has said that Manchester City are holding an interest in the 22-year-old French centre-back RB Leipzig. Now, I saw a few of you guys commenting saying, is this the right-sided centre-back that City are looking for? But according to transfermarket.com, the player's left-footed, and normally to indicate which side of the defence players are going to be playing on tends to be a case where if you're both-footed, you'll be able to cover both on the right and the left-hand side. If you're left-footed, a player like Guardiola and Nathan Ake, they're going to go on the left-hand side. And if you're right-footed, so a player like John Stones, for example, he'd go on the right side of defence. And going off the fact that Lukeba, according to transfermarket.com, is left-footed, I'd say that suggests that he plays more on the left side of centre-back rather than the right side of centre-back. So I have my doubts here about Lukeba being our Kyle Walker replacement that Manchester City are looking for. I do have my doubts about City making a move in this transfer window as well, but I'm not completely dismissing that Man City may be interested and want to bring Lukeba in particular, potentially having a look at next summer in particular, when Man City may want to have a good look at players that are injury prone, including that of John Stones, whose contract is up next summer, and also looking towards Nathan Ake, because of course he's our left-sided centre-back who also is quite injury prone. But you know, you want to dig a little deeper. I mean, Man City, in terms of centre-backs and looking at players for the future, obviously spent a heck of a lot of money to bring Guardiola in. We've also spent a lot of money to have a player like Cody Husonoff here, again, who can play on the right-hand side for Manchester City, as he is right-footed and also very quick. And so I feel like when it comes to a right-sided centre-back, I feel like you've already got your Mediraid replacement for Kyle Walker, but here we are. But we've also got players like Juma Barr and Vita Hayes, and we want to be finding ways to get these players into the Manchester City first team, and bringing someone like Lukeba in is potentially going to hamper that of Vita Hayes and or Juma Barr potentially making it around the Manchester City first team squad. So because of all the doubts and things not really clicking and making sense for me, I presume this is a little bit of a nothing story, pure transfer speculation. But yeah, you guys asked for the latest, and that is the latest on that. As I said, I don't think it's Man City aren't ever going to want to make a move. It's just not going to come in this window. We're already struggling when it comes to non-homegrown players. We've got, as far as I'm concerned, enough centre backs to help us cover. Hence, we've sent Vita Hayes out on loan. So imagine a case where we sent Vita Hayes out on loan, but we decide to bring in another non-homegrown centre-back. What does that suggest then to Vita Hayes? That he's just well down the pecking order. So I think Manchester City are going to stick with what they got, and they're going to stick with the 6 centre-backs that they have as well, which obviously is Guardiola, Ruben Diaz, Cody Husonoff, Manuel Akanji, Nathan Ake and John Stones, which 2 of them players are very injury prone, and City do sometimes go with 2 centre-backs, even 3 centre-backs. So I can understand some people's suggestions about Man City maybe looking a bit short when it comes to an extra defender, and that's why I've always said when it comes to maybe looking at a long-term Kyle Walker replacement, you want to look at a full-back, but ideally you'd want a right-back who can also play as a centre-back as well, just so you've got extra numbers there. So we'll see what does happen in terms of Lukeba. But as far as I'm concerned, I can't see Manchester City making a move for him in this window. Now, the other story I want to speak about, and some interesting comments have been made by Pep Guardiola during his pre-match build-up to Manchester City's friendly today against Palermo. So first I'm just going to read through some of these comments that have been made by Pep Guardiola, and then I'll give my thoughts on this. So a lot of this is to do with central midfielders, and if you cast your minds back to yesterday's transfer update when I was speaking about Carlos Baleba from Brighton and Hove Albion, and in previous updates when speaking about Lucas Paqueta of West Ham United, I've said that the non-homegrown players, I can't see Man City wanted to make a move for these players in this transfer window because it's just so complicated when it comes to moving players on. But the fact that City have been heavily linked with moves for central midfielders tells you potentially that Man City still not quite happy when it comes to their midfield, and Pep Guardiola is all about midfield. So, first comment that was made came from Pep Guardiola. This came via the Manchester Evening News through City Extra's Twitter feed. So, big up City Extra, go and check them out. I'm sure all of you guys have already checked them out before. A huge name in the City community. So, they said that Rodri is not going to be fully fit for Manchester City until after the September international break following an injury setback sustained at the FIFA Club World Cup, as revealed by Pep Guardiola. Firstly, I think there's been a big overreaction to this. I wasn't expecting Rodri. I even suggested in a couple of live streams ago about Rodri not fully being utilised by Manchester City until after November's international break. So what's going to happen is you're not really going to see much of Rodri during the first few games of the season. We'll get back after the September international break, and City are going to start to integrate Rodri more into the Manchester City squad. You're going to see him get some more minutes. You're going to see him get maybe the odd start or two, and then I imagine City will ask Spain for Rodri not to be called up to the international break. They'll give him a good couple of weeks off, and they'll see how he recovers, and the same will happen during October, where he'll get more minutes and maybe a couple more starts. And then if I were Man City, I'd again ask Spain not to call Rodri up during the November international break, and then I'd fully integrate Rodri into the City squad once we get to the end of November, and we'll get a better idea about what a post-recovery ACL injury that Rodri has had, how his recovery is looking, and potentially what he's going to be looking like for the future, because let's not forget Rodri now isn't too far away from turning 30 years old, and it's not easy to recover from such an injury and get back up to them high standards, and that's something that City really have to think about both in the January transfer window and in this transfer window. It's why City have decided to bring in the likes of Tijani Reinders and Nico Gonzalez as well. So Pep Guardiola goes on to say that Rodri's getting better, but he's had a big injury against Al Hilal. He's trained better in the last few days. Hopefully after the international break is when he'll be really fit. Hopefully in these games he can play some minutes, but what is important is he doesn't have pain. We don't want to have this Rodri coming back injured. We try desperately to avoid that. He's been training the last 2 sessions with us, and that's good. So the fact that he's picked up the injury, he's rested and recovered from that, and he's not too far away. We're looking at, when he's picked up that injury, it's a potential 6 to 8 week injury, so he's still going through the recovery phase, a little bit like Mateo Kovacic is. Now, Pep Guardiola goes on to say, this time via the ever-reliable Jack Gaughan, he says that we need a little bit fewer numbers. I don't like having lots of players. A lot of players should leave. The transfer window is moving a lot, and many things are going to happen. We'll see what happens and how we'll handle it. And that's Pep Guardiola here suggesting that Manchester City are going to be ruthless when it comes to player sales, because they need to move players on who don't want to be here. So players like James McAtee, Jack Grealish linked with the exit door, Calvin Phillips as well. These players will leave. But Manchester City got too many players in their squad. They can't even register everybody that they've got available to them right now. So more players are going to have to move on. We've seen Vita Hayes head out on loan. Surprised he's not been asked about the Vita Hayes loan during his press conference, but here we are. are. Claudio Echeverri, Zaveri Naipan, they will also head out on loan, so a couple more players away from the Manchester City first team squad. And then it comes about the first team and making some room. I've spoken before about if we want everybody in the squad to be registered for both the Premier League and Champions League, then we need to move on at least one of our non-homegrown players. And going off the fact that Pep Guardiola is not happy with his midfield numbers, as been suggested by Pep Guardiola, tells me that maybe Man City aren't going to want to sell one of their central midfielders, and a sale could come potentially from another position. Well, for me, I don't think we can afford to sell any centre-backs or any defenders. I don't think we're going to have any more looks at the goalkeepers other than Stefan Ortega will leave, but we still need at least one more player to leave. So who's that player going to be? I find that really intriguing, because for me, it all comes down to which players are going to leave in the City first team squad, and that's going to give us a good idea about if there is to be any more potential incomings. Then it's more than likely going to be in that position. And then Pep Guardiola made a really interesting comment, which I think can be interpreted in several different ways. So Pep Guardiola, through Manchester City's own official channels, has said that we have three midfielders. I'd say with Mateo Kovacic injured until September or October, hopefully earlier. Rodri was out for 6 months, and Nico. So obviously Pep Guardiola is saying there he's three options. He's got Mateo Kovacic, Rodri and Nico Gonzalez as the three players who can play in the deeper roles in midfield. He goes on to say that you've got players like Ilkay Gundogan who can play there. Tijani Reinders can play there when everybody is fit. They have the opportunity to play more in an attacking midfield role, where we've also got the likes of Phil Foden and Ryan Cherki. So he said he's got lots of good options there, and he says having a good big size squad is good for the season, because he's looked at the schedule in his office, and once we hit to September, we're playing every 3 to 4 days, so he's going to need them players. But I found in particular what was really interesting was comments about Kovacic, an injury update on Rodri, as Nico Gonzalez isn't injured. We haven't had much of an update on him. Spoken in a little bit of detail about Ilkay Gundogan, saying that they're attacking midfielders who can play more in the box to box, same with Tijani Reinders. So he's just going through all of the options, and then mentions that Foden and Cherki are going to be players who are going to play more in the attacking role. Whereas Nico G's the only comment he got was "and Nico," and I can understand why some people are interpreting and having a look at this, that if you read that in the tone, it's just almost like Nico Gonzalez is a last fought here for Manchester City, because we also do have other options who can help play in midfield. We've seen Manuel Akanji play in there before, and I'm not entirely sure about what's going to happen with Nico Gonzalez. So what I'm going to say is we're having a look at if there is to be some movement in Man City's midfield. If Nico G has fallen down the pecking order with Kovacic injured and Rodri injured, Nico G should be playing first and foremost today against Palermo, and I would have a look at how his playing time is looking for Man City's games in August, because if Nico G doesn't end up starting any of them games, would suggest to me that if we've currently got all our options and all our options are injured and Nico G is the only option, and Pep Guardiola is having to tinker the squad to ensure that he's got a player to fill that position, tells me that Nico G just isn't in Man City's plans for the upcoming season. He's going to once more struggle for starts and minutes, which would make Nico G, I'd suggest, a potential or to Manchester City anyway, not needed. So he could be, and I've spoken about this before, and I hope that it's not true, but Nico G could be that player that potentially moves on. And if there is to be any more non-homegrown sales by Manchester City, whether that be a loan or a permanent sale of Nico G, that does then open up the opportunity of a non-homegrown player being brought in, whether that be a fullback or, in particular with these links that have come out over the last couple of days, a central midfielder. Could it be Baleba, £104 million? Could it be a Lucas Paqueta? Yeah, he's getting towards the latter parts of his 20s, but he's also a high-quality Premier League proven player who would help improve Manchester City's squad, and there's no doubt that Man City have held a long-term interest in Lucas Paqueta. So I'm just going to say to you guys that keep a good eye on Manchester City's squad and our starting lineups for our match against Wolves away next Saturday, against Tottenham Hotspur Hotspur at home the weekend after. I know that we play on the eve of transfer deadline day, but Hugo Viana has already proven that he can make transfers happen very quickly, and Pep Guardiola has suggested in his comments in the last 24 hours that he's prepared to make sales happen and make sales happen pretty quickly. So who's going to leave? And depending on how many players leave and which players leave, there is the potential that City may not be done in this market. And going off the comments that have been made by Pep Guardiola, in particular focusing on midfield, some concern about what the recovery is going to look like for Kovacic and for Rodri leaves Manchester City maybe potentially a bit short on quality in defensive midfield. They added Nico G, and that could be arguably one of the most poor signings that City have made, and a pointless signing that City have made for a player that they spent, what was it, 50, 60 million pound on, for a player that's just who seems maybe that Pep Guardiola regards as just not being good enough for Manchester City. And I don't know why. Every time I've seen Nico G play for City, he seems to have done all right, in my opinion. So I don't know if it's just, maybe Pep thinks he doesn't fit in, or maybe Pep thinks that he's just not good enough, or he doesn't train well. I don't know. The fact that he's not really making any comments on Nico G causes me some concern. So we're now going to see about, rather than words being spoken, what the actions are. And if he's not getting starts whilst Kovacic and Rodri is injured, and it's a Gundogan or an Akanji or a Tijani Reinders getting given the nod in that position instead, could suggest to me that Nico G could be out. And if there's any more non-homegrown sales, there is the potential of Manchester City once more dipping into the market and bringing in potentially another player. Could it be a Baleba? Could it be a Paqueta? Found that really interesting, so I'd love to know your thoughts of that, guys, in the comments below. Also, don't forget as well to leave a thumbs up on today's video. We are aiming for 300 likes. Don't forget to subscribe as well if you're new around here. I'm going to keep you guys up to date every single day with all the latest City transfer news here on YouTube, so do subscribe. Social media links are in the description as well if you want to go and follow me on my X, Instagram and TikTok. Email also in the description too if you want to hit me up for any sponsorships for any videos or any general business inquiries. And I'll see you all again religiously tomorrow for the next daily Manchester City transfer update. So I've been JSGC. Thank you everyone for watching. Hope everyone is safe and well. Peace. Ciao for now.